The royal courtyard of the starship Radiant Dawn had seen many departures. Soldiers had marched through its gates with proud smiles. Diplomats had bowed and promised peace. Scientists had left for distant colonies with bright dreams in their eyes. None had made the Queen uneasy. But this was different. The human ambassador, Elena Marquez, stood tall in her simple grey uniform. She did not bow deeply. Humans rarely did. They preferred eye contact, honesty, strength. Her daughter clung to her hand. The girl could not have been older than 6. Her name was Lucia. Lucia's dark curls bounced as she shook her head. Her small fingers tightened around her mother's sleeve. "I do not want to go," Lucia said, her voice trembling. "I want to stay with the Queen." A quiet ripple moved through the gathered nobles. The Aurelian court was not used to open emotion. On their world of Lysa, dignity was valued above all. Children were trained to control tears before they could walk. Queen Seraphine of Lysa felt something unfamiliar twist in her chest. The child stepped forward. Lucia released her mother's hand and ran across the polished white stone. She stopped before the Queen's tall crystalline throne. The throne shimmered with soft blue light. The Queen's silver robes flowed like mist around her. Lucia looked very small in comparison. "Your Radiance," Lucia said, trying to remember her manners. Her lower lip quivered. "You said I could visit again." "I did," Queen Seraphine replied gently. The Queen's voice usually carried the calm of deep space. Now it felt uncertain. Lucia's eyes filled with tears. "But what if something happens before I come back?" she whispered. "What if the stars change?" Aurelian nobles stiffened. To speak of change so openly was almost taboo. Change meant weakness. Change meant instability. The Queen studied the child. For 3 cycles, Ambassador Marquez had lived among them to negotiate the stellar accord between humanity and the Aurelian sovereignty. It had been a difficult process. The Aurelians valued logic and precision. Humans valued instinct and emotion. They had clashed often, yet during those long sessions, Lucia had wandered the palace gardens. She had asked questions without fear. She had touched the glowing leaves of Lysan trees. She had laughed at the silent statues and named them. She had also spoken to the Queen. Often, at first the meetings were accidental. The Queen would find the child sitting near the reflecting pools, staring at the twin suns. Lucia would ask simple questions. "Do you ever get lonely? Do you always have to be strong? Do queens have best friends?" No one had asked Queen Seraphine such things in centuries. The Aurelians were a long-lived species. Seraphine had ruled for 212 years. She had led her people through war and isolation. She had hardened herself for their survival. Yet this human child had not treated her like a symbol. She had treated her like a person. Now Lucia wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. "I do not want you to be alone," the girl said. "When Mama goes home, you will still be here. You will still have to be strong all the time." A hush fell over the courtyard. Ambassador Marquez took a step forward. "Lucia, that is enough." But Queen Seraphine lifted one slender hand. "It is not enough," the Queen said softly. She rose from her throne. Aurelian rulers did not descend to ground level for farewells. It was tradition. It preserved hierarchy. It maintained distance. Seraphine ignored the tradition. She walked down the steps until she stood before Lucia. Up close, the difference between them was clear. The Queen's skin shimmered faintly like starlight. Her eyes glowed pale gold. Lucia's brown eyes were red from crying. The queen knelt. Gasps echoed around the courtyard. Lucia blinked in surprise. On Lysa, Queen Seraphine said, we are taught that strength means silence, that composure is power. We believe tears are a loss of control. Lucia sniffed. Mama says crying just means you care a lot. The queen felt that unfamiliar twisting sensation again. Ambassador Marquez lowered her gaze, unsure whether she should intervene. For many cycles, Seraphine continued, I believed humanity was reckless. Your emotions are intense, unpredictable. I feared they would disrupt our stability. Lucia tilted her head. But then you came, the queen said. You asked me if I had friends. No one had asked me that in over a century. The child's face softened. Do you? Lucia asked quietly. The queen paused. I do now. The noble shifted uncomfortably. This was not how queens spoke. Lucia stepped closer and wrapped her small arms around Seraphine's neck. It was impulsive, completely against protocol. The guards tensed. Seraphine froze for a fraction of a second. Then she did something that would be recorded in Aurelian history for generations. She returned the embrace. The courtyard fell silent, except for Lucia's soft sobs. You will not be alone, Lucia said into the queen's shoulder, because I will think about you. And Mama says when humans think about someone, it means a piece of us stays with them. Seraphine closed her luminous eyes. Aurelian science had mapped galaxies. They had mastered quantum gates and stellar engineering. Yet they had never quantified something like that. A piece of someone staying behind. Ambassador Marquez felt her own throat tighten. Your radiance, she said carefully. The transport window will close soon. Seraphine rose slowly, still holding Lucia's hand. You fear the stars will change before you return, the queen said. Lucia nodded. The stars will always change, Seraphine replied. But that does not erase what has been shared beneath them. She reached to her collar and detached a small, crystalline pendant. It glowed faintly with inner light. This is a memory shard, the queen explained. It contains a record of our garden conversations, your laughter among the Lysan trees, the questions you asked me. The nobles stared in disbelief. Royal memory shards were sacred. They were rarely given, even to heirs. Seraphine placed the pendant around Lucia's neck. When you look at this, she said, you will know that on Lysa there is a queen who has learned that strength is not the absence of tears. Lucia touched the crystal carefully. It is warm, she whispered. It carries emotional resonance, the queen said. Your people call it love. The word felt strange in her mouth. Lucia smiled through her tears. Then you are not alone anymore. Ambassador Marquez stepped forward and gently took her daughter's hand. Say goodbye, Lucia. Lucia took a deep breath. Goodbye, Queen Seraphine. I will come back, and next time I will be taller. A faint laugh escaped the queen. It was soft but real. I look forward to that. The human delegation began moving toward the waiting shuttle. Its hull gleamed beneath the twin suns. Lucia turned once more and waved with both arms. Seraphine raised her hand in return. As the shuttle lifted into the sky, something shifted within the Aurelian court. The nobles looked at their queen differently, not weaker, more vast. Later, in the quiet of her private chamber, Seraphine stood before the panoramic window. The shuttle became a distant star, then vanished into the dark. She touched the place on her collar where the memory shard had rested for decades. For the first time in 200 years, she allowed a tear to fall. It traced a luminous path down her cheek. An attendant at the doorway saw it and froze. Seraphine did not hide it. "Prepare a transmission to Earth," she said calmly. "Yes, your radiance. Inform them that the stellar accord will include open cultural exchange, educational programs, civilian visitation rights." The attendant blinked in surprise. That was not part of the original terms. It is now. Humanity had brought many things to Lysa: innovation, boldness, chaos. But a child had brought something greater: connection. Across the void between stars, empires were often built on fear and maintained by power. On that day, an alliance was strengthened by a little girl who refused to let a queen be alone. And in the grand archives of the Aurelian sovereignty, historians would later record that the most important moment of the accord was not a signature on a document. It was the moment a queen knelt and learned how to cry.